Here today picking apples, and I wanted to show you one of my favourite apples, which is the Mutsu. You can see the size of these apples. They are fantastic, beautiful apples. They will cook nicely. They're also nice just as a fresh eating apple, but very, very large. So for a lot of people that might mean that you have to share it with somebody. The one thing that I have to be aware of is as they start to ripen, they will start to fall. And because of the weight of the apples, when you've got apples this large, you have a lot of weight coming down, and you'll see on this one, which is a smaller one, the degree of bruising that has occurred when it has hit the ground. And what that means is that it won't keep any more for me and needs to be eaten very quickly. Whereas one that I've picked and not allowed to fall will keep much longer. Another one of the elements that drives me to actually pick the apples at this stage, not only is the fact that they're falling to the ground, but the pest that we have here that does trouble them, which is the European wasps. And shouldn't have dropped that one, it'll be bruised. I'll show you here. You'll see a little hole where the European wasps have begun to dig their way into the apple, and they will go inside and they would completely empty that apple of flesh and when you went to pick it, you would only have a skin. I'll show you a few examples. Here is an apple that has fallen, and the bruise when it's fallen has softened it so that the wasps can get in, and you'll see the amount of flesh that they have eaten. None there, thankfully. They've left them. We'll be able to cut that off and still get some good apple out of it. Here on a Granny Smith, you can see an example where the wasps are at work inside the apple. There's been a little bit of scab on this apple, and that's allowed them the opening to come in, and they are feasting away on it. Thankfully, this doesn't happen with the grannies very often, and so we don't lose too many. On the Golden Delicious here, the wasps have been at work, and unfortunately the Golden Delicious had quite a bit of scab this year, and that's opened them up a lot. Now you'll see some apples here that look intact, but when I pull it off and open it, you'll see it's full of European wasps. Thankfully they're fairly busy and not overly aggressive, but they will certainly sting you, and they're nasty if they get to you. So that's the sort of damage that a European wasp can do. We grow quite a few apples. We have probably around 10 or 12 trees. We have Mutsu and Golden Delicious, Granny Smith. Granny Smith we don't pick for another month, probably in June, so that's getting into winter before we pick it, when it starts to yellow and starts to develop some sweetness. Most people never see Granny Smiths looking like that because they are picked when they're green and are not very nice at all. The other of my favourites is the Jonagold. It's a lovely apple to look at and very tasty, reasonable size, and keeps quite well as well. It is an early apple though, so that means that you're not going to have it around for, over winter really. You need to use it by the time winter comes along. But very nice for juicing, fresh eating, acceptable to cook. I would certainly recommend anybody that they grow Jonagolds. They crop fairly well, and we've only got 2 trees and they produce heaps and heaps of apples, probably 50% of the apples that we have. With the apple trees that we do have, there's probably only 6 to 7 of those trees that actually are producing larger crops at this stage, but that gives us enough apples to keep us eating for at least 6 months, maybe even longer. Sometimes at the end of the season, as they get older, we have to bottle some to keep them going longer so they don't go off. And rarely ever do we buy apples from the shop. So I'd encourage anyone that has any garden to grow some fruit trees, and if you're in a climate that supports apples, certainly plant apples because they are so easy, they will produce so well. The amount of effort that is required to grow an apple tree is quite small, really. You have to do essentially 4 things. You have to plant them, you have to prune them, pick them, and you do need to fertilise as well, unless you've got fantastic soil. They do need something. But it isn't a great amount of effort compared to the amount of food that you get from them.